In the dim glow of a Yale University laboratory during the early 20th century, a group of psychologists were running what seemed like a simple behavioral test. Chalk dust filled the air, notes cluttered the desks, and the hum of curiosity lingered like electricity. Their goal? To understand how humans learn and obey. But what they found, entirely by accident, would change how we define morality itself. This wasn't just another psychology experiment. It was the moment science accidentally tripped over the meaning of good. The roots of this mystery trace back to Edward Thorndike's early behaviorism experiments, where cats learned to escape boxes and humans learned through reward and punishment. His theories inspired generations, but decades later, a young psychologist named Stanley Milgram would take those ideas further, into the human soul. He asked a question as old as time. Why do good people follow bad orders? What makes someone good when obedience demands otherwise? In 1961, inside a Yale basement, Milgram began his now infamous obedience experiments. Volunteers believed they were helping with a study on learning. In truth, they were asked to deliver electric shocks, fake but terrifyingly real to them, to another person for giving wrong answers. As screams echoed through the wall, most participants pressed the switch again and again, simply because a man in a lab coat told them to. The results horrified the world. Ordinary people, capable of kindness, had become agents of pain. Goodness, it seemed, could bend under pressure. When Milgram published his findings, it was as if he'd held up a mirror to humanity. Reporters called it a portrait of moral collapse, but psychologists saw something deeper. The experiment wasn't about cruelty, it was about conformity, about how context shapes conscience. What they'd accidentally revealed was this: goodness isn't a constant, it's a variable, dependent on authority, fear, and social expectation. And for the first time, science forced us to ask, are we good because we choose to be, or because we're told to be? The discovery reignited centuries-old debates among philosophers. Rousseau had said humans are naturally good, corrupted by society. Hobbes believed the opposite, that we're selfish by nature, restrained only by law. But the data from Yale told a different story. Both were right in part. Humanity carries the seeds of both virtue and vice, and the soil, our environment, decides which grows. That simple, accidental realization reframed moral philosophy. Good was no longer a static truth, it was a dynamic process. The question of goodness didn't exist in a vacuum. Just 2 decades before Milgram's tests, the world had witnessed the Holocaust, ordinary people carrying out extraordinary evil. Philosopher Hannah Arendt, covering the trial of Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann, coined a haunting phrase, the banality of evil. She meant that great crimes can emerge not from monsters, but from thoughtless obedience. Her insight echoed Milgram's findings like an eerie refrain. The line between good and evil wasn't a wall, it was a sliding door, one that anyone could cross under the right pressure. In 1973, another team at Princeton conducted what would later be called the Good Samaritan experiment. Theology students, future priests, were told to give a sermon on compassion. On their way, they encountered a man slumped in an alley, moaning in pain. You'd think they'd stop, but most didn't. Why? Because they were told they were late. The pressure of time overpowered the instinct to help. It was one of the most ironic studies in history. People preaching goodness, unable to live it. Once again, the lesson was clear. Goodness isn't a belief, it's a behavior that crumbles under stress. Fast forward to the 2000s. Neuroscientists scanning brains during moral decision-making found something astonishing. Acts of empathy and compassion activated both the rational and emotional centers of the brain. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex lit up, the very region linked to emotional intelligence. The amygdala responded to fairness and justice. The data confirmed what ancient spiritual traditions had long suggested. Goodness isn't abstract, it's embodied, wired into the brain, trained by experience. Monks who practiced compassion meditation showed measurable changes in their neural pathways. In simple terms, goodness could be practiced into existence. Behavioral economists joined the search. In the dictator game and ultimatum game, researchers discovered that even when given total control, most people chose fairness over greed. Generosity wasn't the exception, it was the norm. But here's the twist. When participants were stressed, tired, or afraid, their generosity shrank. The brain's prefrontal circuits, responsible for empathy, went quiet. Once again, environment trumped idealism. We weren't born good or bad, we were born adaptive. Today, the experiment continues, but the lab has changed. Algorithms now make moral choices for us. Who gets approved for a loan? Who gets flagged by police software? Who sees the truth online? Artificial intelligence is our newest mirror, reflecting our collective morality. If human goodness can bend under pressure, what happens when machines inherit our biases? Tech ethicists warn that without reflection, our digital morality may repeat the same errors. Obedience without empathy, logic without compassion. The accidental experiment from Yale now echoes in the circuits of silicon brains. Every generation faces its own version of the Milgram test. Whether it's standing up to injustice, helping a stranger, or choosing empathy over ego, the question remains the same. What will you do when authority, comfort, or fear stand in your way? The accidental discoveries of the past whisper one enduring truth. Goodness isn't about perfection. It's about awareness, about pausing long enough to see another person as human, not data or ideology. That pause, that single heartbeat, is where morality lives.
So, what is good? Maybe it isn't an answer at all, but a question we must keep asking. From Yale's basement labs to the neural maps of the brain, the search for goodness has revealed more about our fragility than our strength. Yet that fragility is what makes it real. Because goodness isn't a permanent state. It's a choice we renew every single day. And perhaps that's the most beautiful accident of all, that in searching for what makes us obedient, we discovered what makes us human.